Hello friends, welcome to AllTricks. Today we are going to update this hard disk with a new casing from SMACC. So this hard disk which we have is Seagate Free Agent Go, and I bought it earlier. It has been quite some time. So first of all, I will plug this hard disk to my system and benchmark it. That result we will use to compare with internal hard disk and other hard disks. On our PC, we have to launch Explorer. We can see the drive is there under this PC. And now I will launch disk management from manage section. I will go to the disk management system from computer management. If you see, the disk 2 is my hard disk. You can see I have right click and went to the property of the disk. Here under hardware, I can see all the hard disk which is currently on my system. So this one is Seagate Free Agent Go. It's a 320 GB hard drive. Now we will benchmark this hard disk. For benchmarking, we need Crystal Disk Mark. So launch your browser, search for Crystal Disk Mark and click on the first result which you will get. It will take to you crystalmark.info where you can download the file. It will help us to benchmark. There is another option to download the zip. It will be there on the same website. I already have downloaded it, so I won't download the file, neither the exe nor the zip. You can see the file is on my desktop. I will just extract this file and use this file benchmark. We are done with extracting. I have to launch disk mark 64exe because I am using a 64-bit operating system. If you are using a 32-bit operating system, you have to use 32-bit one. If you are using ARM, then you will have to use the ARM. Run the file as an administrator, as I did. So let's select the hard disk and benchmark it. So I have this drive labeled as F. I will select that and I'll start the benchmark process. Once the disk is selected, you have to click on All for Crystal Disk Mark to benchmark your hard drive. Let me fast forward this process so that we can get to the final result. So here we have the result. Now I'll take a screenshot of this result. Use this to compare benchmark with old and new hard disk case. Let's quickly the hard disk from old casing to new USB 3 casing, which is from SMACC. You can see in the video. The process is quite simple. We have to take the hard disk out from our Seagate Free Agent Go and put that same hard disk in the new casing. So we need to just disassemble the hard disk. We need to disassemble the enclosure. Open the screws, whichever are holding the package. Take out the hard disk and use that same hard disk in the new casing. So here I am done with taking out the hard disk and I have to use this hard disk in the new casing. So I will disassemble the circuit component and attach the hard disk and refit it in the same enclosure. So it's done for the USB 3 enclosure as well. Once everything is done, we'll put the cover back on the USB 3 enclosure and connect a USB 3 cable to the hard disk and plug it to our laptop and start the benchmarking process. There we go. The hard disk is ready. Let's connect it to our laptop. Hard disk with the new enclosure is detected in our system. You can see in the Explorer the same drive AllTricks has arrived again with drive letter F. Now we'll do the benchmarking again. I will run the disk mark 64 ESC again and start the benchmarking selecting the disk. And again we'll just fast forward the video till we get the result. Quickly save the old result which we got with the default hard disk enclosure. Now, let's get started with the comparison of old and new enclosure. So at right hand side we have the old enclosure speed and at left hand side we have the new one. If you see, the values are identical. I had a doubt that it might be because of the default cable which I got with the hard disk. What I did, I used a different cable to test the same result, and meanwhile I saved this result as well. We will have an idea what I'm getting with the default cable which arrived with this and with the third party cable or a cable from another hard disk. I have ejected the hard disk and used a new cable which came with my WD USB hard disk. Benchmark this hard disk again with this new cable. Do the same process of benchmarking, select the drive and start the benchmark. Go friends, we have started the benchmarking process. Let's meet at the end of the benchmark. Okay, so here we have the benchmarks. And if you see this benchmark and the previous one with the default cable, both are still similar. So what I will do, I will keep a screenshot of the new one, and I have a Western Digital hard disk. I will benchmark that as well here to see whether we are getting good speed on that. I will eject this drive again and I will plug the other Western Digital hard disk to benchmark. Let me quickly connect the Western Digital hard disk and launch the benchmark tool. I will select any of the drive button from the hard disk. There are 3. And start the benchmark. See, the benchmark results are pretty good as compared to the previous hard disk. And now if you see the old one, they are in 40s and the new one is in 100s. So I'll take a screenshot of this as well for future reference. Now what I will do is eject this disk, and I do have a connector of old Buffalo hard disk and I'll be using that with the Seagate hard disk which I took out from the PCL. I have connected the hard disk to the connector and it's connected to the system now. I'm running the benchmark again. I have selected the drive letter and there we go. If you see, the numbers on the same hard disk with this USB 3 connector is better. That means the fault is in our enclosure. The casing we have definitely has a USB 3 port, but as we saw, it doesn't support USB 3 speeds. Maybe it's a shell, and underlying we have USB 2 connections only. So be aware of these kind of casings and fraud. Since I have bought from local market, it will be hard for me to get a replacement of this one. Please try to buy these kind of cases from Amazon and make sure to check the speed and benchmark once. Once you are done with the benchmarking, at least you will be sure you are getting here USB 3 casing with USB 3 speeds. So these kind of products make fool of people. Back to our results, you can see the numbers are not great, but yeah, it's better than the initial casing and even the enclosure which I got from SMACC.
Then we have all the 4 benchmarks which is here. One is Seagate Reagent Pro default HDD user. Second one is fellow hard disk USB 3 connector. Then third one is SMACC USB3 user, which we today. Then fourth one is from Western Digital. Here we see Western Digital has the best result, but our hard disk did perform well with the Buffalo connector, and that means SMACC is not that great. That's all for today. Like our video, subscribe our channel, hit the bell icon to get notification.